Hi, everybody. If you don't recognize me, I'm Kira. I'm the teen librarian at Rawlings Library, and I hope it's good to see you again. I'm going to start off with a couple of things before I get to my final preview of the summer reading books. One is I am actually hosting a Stonewall Anniversary virtual dance party on Sunday. So if you're queer or an ally and you want to celebrate what in many ways began what was then known as gay liberation, register, and you can help me with the playlist because I need help. And tell your friends to register too. Okay. The other thing to tell you is the first two people who comment on this will get to pick one of the books I discuss, and we'll get them free. So I'm going to get started. Okay, so today we're doing the nonfiction, realistic fiction, and science fiction. So the first book I am going to talk about is our one nonfiction pick. So I'm going to hold it up for you. Ooh, the light's weird. It's called Dear Bully. So this is a collection of short pieces in prose, in verse, and in comic version by 70 YA authors addressing their memories of bullying in their lives. It's written as a document of solidarity to those who are experiencing bullying today. Most of the authors were bullied, and they talk about it in their pieces. Some of them, starting in middle school, some of them from elementary school on. Others of them write about being the bystanders to bullying and being afraid to speak up for the victim. And as many of us that were bullied, there are even more who were bystanders and sort of knew that it was wrong, but were afraid that if we stood up for that person, we'd become the object of bullying. And they talk about, there's one in particular that, let me see if I wrote it down. Darn it, I didn't write down who wrote this one. But one author talks about how there are really bullies all throughout life, not as clearly defined, perhaps, as they are when you're growing up, but people who engage in the same behavior. And we need to learn and be willing to be strong and to stand up for the people who are victimized. And I thought that piece was really great, talking about being a bystander and how, you should gather your courage and stand up to that bully, One of my favorites was a mini comic, but I'm going to butcher a name again, I hope not, by Cecil Castellucci. And this comic was about how her group of friends, every week, they would decide that one of the group would be just iced out. And it seems extraordinarily bizarre to me, but then one week they decided to ice out this one boy who was a group of their friends, and she just thought it was stupid. So she went and she talked to him, and he said, "Why are you talking to me? I'm the one that everyone's supposed to be giving the silent treatment to." And she said, "Well, I think that's stupid." And the next week, she was the one iced out, and he came and talked to her. And over a period of time, they talked to the group, and they decided that it was stupid, and they stopped doing it. There are also cool comics in that one. They also draw attention to the now well-documented relationship between bullying and suicide. And just to the teens that I know, or I hope I will know soon, I hope that if you're in that position and you're starting to think about ending your life, that you will talk to someone. If you have no one to talk to me. And we can work on it, okay? There's always another answer. And I say that as someone who's been through suicidal thinking. So I hope that I'll be able to gain your trust. Another of the pieces recalled how her brother, she lived in a very small town, and her brother was gay and bullied and eventually ran away from home. And I think that speaks to a lot of dangerous bullying that leads to high suicide rates in our LGBTQ plus. I usually add the IA, but that doesn't seem like anybody else does that. Anyway, a lot of suicides in that population. And again, I want people to talk to me because hopefully I'll be able to help or find you help. Okay. So that's dear bullying. Oh, as a side note, I happen to know that Immortal Technique, the rapper, when he was in high school, he occasionally bullied Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah, but now they get along great. He wasn't consistently bullying, but he did bully him every once in a while. But now they're buddies. So just a little piece of modern, they got over bullying. So yep, that is our one nonfiction. And so on to realistic fiction. Okay, so the first, we've got two here. So the first one is American Panda. American Panda by Gloria Chow is about May, who, despite being only 17, is a freshman at MIT. She's the child of immigrants, and her parents have literally mapped out her future for her. She is going to excel at MIT, go to a top medical school, become a doctor, and marry an top Ivy League Taiwanese boy, and then have a litter of Taiwanese children. They've actually already got the Taiwanese boy picked out for her. Maybe because she's a little young for college. She's only 17. She skipped the 4th grade. And maybe because she's sort of, throughout her life, she's followed the dictates of her parents. She doesn't have that sense of freedom that a lot of teens get when they go to college. You know, they're away from their parents. They can be themselves. They don't have to perform for anybody in their family. They don't have to live up to particular expectations, though probably when grades come, people have to answer for those. But she doesn't quite get that because she's been under their thumb, though she would probably not like that term. But she does start to explore things that give her joy. She loves to dance, and she has a very secret dream to own a dance studio. So she finds this open, empty room that nobody else knows about, and she dances away in there. And then she even starts teaching dance on Sundays, which she does not tell her parents about. But she doesn't really get much freedom from them because every Saturday night they have dinner together. They don't live too far from Cambridge. And she gets incessant texts from her mother that an outsider would find hilarious. I found them hilarious. Though you also recognize how difficult it must be to be getting those texts consistently. And her mother is seems the more driving force upon her parents' pressure on her. She knows what happens if you disobey their dreams for you, because her brother, who did almost everything he was supposed to do, became a doctor, fell for a Taiwanese woman, but then he proposed to this Taiwanese woman, knowing that she physically couldn't have children. Her parents disowned her brother for this. And in the course of the book, she reignites a relationship with their brother outside of her parents' knowledge. But so they want her to be a doctor, and there are a number of problems with this. One, May is a complete and total germaphobe. Secondly, she falls asleep in the biology lectures. She's just not interested. And she doesn't tell her parents this, but she's sort of freaking out, because she doesn't really know what she loves other than dance. And another issue with her parents' demands and May's feelings is that she's a giant crush on a Japanese American boy. And that is a no-go with the parents. She doesn't tell them, but a no-go. She definitely knows. So anyway, I mean, the book examines this life, which is often very funny, but also consistently wrenched between these two worlds. As May is trying to find the strength to define herself and her future, despite this incredible pressure from her parents. So even though it's, the book is fraught with this, it's also funny. So yeah, there is American Panda for you. A great read. And next we're going to talk about Tight. I could show you the cover there. I think I like this cover myself, but so Tight is Tori Maldonado's novel. It's about a quiet Afro-Puerto Rican sixth grader. Yes, he lives in Brooklyn. His name is Brian. He's a quieter kid. He doesn't really have any close friends. He studies hard, and his great love is reading his beloved comic books, mostly superhero comic books, and he likes playing video games too. But he doesn't really have any close friends. He's focused on school, and he adores his comic books. And he's a mild-mannered kid, and his mother, who works at the community center in Brooklyn, she encourages this calm, thoughtful demeanor that he has, and wants him, not to get in fights and to think and speak his way out of conflicts. But his sister and his father has been in and out of prison, not a great presence in his life, even when he's home. They constantly warn him about being too soft. And an examination of masculinity, what it means, what it should mean, runs throughout the book in a sense. So eventually his mother invites this boy whose name is Mike over to dinner. And Mike is the son of somebody, of a client of hers at the community center. And she invites Mike because he gets good grades. And she thinks, maybe it's time that Brian has a friend to hang around with, and he gets good grades, so that's good. He'll be a good influence, not a bad influence. And so the two bond immediately over superhero comics. They're both huge fans. But later, you start learning that Mike has a different side to him, an adventurous, troublemaking side. Excuse me. And at first, Brian enjoys the rush. He goes with them to the subway, and they hop the turnstile, and then it gets even more intense. They're subway surfing, and Brian is loving the adrenaline rush of subway surfing. I don't think I'm brave enough to do that, but gradually Mike tries to convince Brian to do more and more clearly wrong things. And those things, I'm going to quote a little bit, they make Brian feel, quote, far away from who I am. And the rest of the book is Brian trying to figure out, what his present and his future are going to look like. And that's complicated by his own gut feelings about himself, as well as people telling him not to be too soft, right? And this unhappy distance that he has with his father. His father's very distant. He doesn't feel like he has a relationship with his dad, and in a large part that's because he thinks he is too soft. So it's sort of him dealing with, who am I and what is my masculinity, and how am I going to define myself? So yeah, that becomes his central issue. And I loved this book. I actually read it a number of years ago, and I think it's great. So those are our two realistic fiction, and so we're going to move on to science fiction. And I apologize, I was not able to read the second one because I just didn't have time. I'm doing all this stuff at work, and I just honestly didn't have time. But I hopefully what I say will get at something of it. But the first one is called Conspiracy of Stars, and I actually sat down and read this all the way through. I found it immensely compelling and great. And it's by Olivia A. Cole. It's set on I'm going to pronounce things. Who knows how to actually pronounce these things because it's fiction? But it's set on the planet Falvoiv, and it's a world inhabited both by its indigenous population, the Faloi, and humans, who, having destroyed Earth, were on this big spaceship going in search of another home. When the spaceship collided with a meteor, and they had to crash land on Faloi. So some agreement was made, and they establish what's called Intera, which is basically a collection of, there are multiple sort of dome-like structures. Faloi is much hotter, has a much more intense sun than the Earth's sun. So they build these domes somewhat to protect them, and they have to wear these skin suits to protect them from the sun. But they can breathe. It's full of jungle. It's this gorgeous, all these different animals. This kind of amazing planet. And the leaders of Intera, the civilization is sort of built around scientists because they were the most populous group on the original ship. And this is a generation or generation and a half later. So our main character is Olivia English, and both of her parents are scientists, and she's training to become a scientist. They call the scientists white coats, and they work in the labs. So just as the council that governs Intera decides to offer internships, which will allow 16-year-old students to actually get into the labs, Olivia starts having these strange experiences. The first one she has, and she doesn't tell anyone about it because it's very strange. She's visiting another dome-like structure with her father, and this massive animal has gotten loose, and so there's everyone's running around, and and they trank it, and she makes eye contact with the animal, and she suddenly has this rush of feeling in her brain, and it's fear and it's pain, and it's completely overwhelming, and she faints from it. And it's very confusing to her. She doesn't know if it's an emotional reaction to seeing this animal tranquilized, or or what it is. But her father sort of scolds her and says, a scientist cannot let emotion affect him or her. And so her father is quite cold. And so she's ashamed of it. And, excuse me. So later, she decides that she wants to do her internship at the labs where she lives, which are the labs on mammals. Each of these sort of very large dome-like structures have labs affiliated with different kinds of animals. They're studying different things, and the one for mammals is where she has grown up and where both of her parents work. And so she wants to do her internship there, and her best friend, who's very brilliant, is also doing the internship there, and her emerging love interest is also doing it there, as well as a number of other people who she becomes closer to. And at the beginning of the internship, not the first day, but a couple days in, she has another of these experiences where it's this room where the animals are not being sort of studied, but they're sedated in cages. And when she goes in there, she feels like she can hear all these sounds. It's so loud, and no one else can hear any of it. And also, when she's away from the lab, she can smell these trees. They're so beautiful. No one else can smell the trees. So it's becoming very confusing for her, and she's starting to worry a lot about her internship. At the same time, when she's with her love interest, they're standing near the door to the labs, and they see one of the phalloi come up with a white coat, and the door opens, and they trank the phalloi, and they pull him in, and they're astounded. They're thinking, this is a terrible breach of whatever agreement we have. They don't know anything about what the agreement is. They don't know anything about the past with them. All they know is that they do not allow themselves to be studied. So this is very upsetting. And so she and her best friend and her new love interest start investigating this and other mysteries. He is not as into science. He says he prefers to watch and listen to people, and he also loves music, but those aren't things that he can do. So he learns how to hack. And so he hacks and discovers all this information, and it seems like the head of the council sort of is sick of the phalloi telling them what they can and can't do on this planet, wants to sort of take over, and is building this gigantic tower that no one really knows what it's for. And so they start investigating, and it gets extraordinarily exciting, taking all of these risks to their lives. Her mother becomes involved in all of this in a very complicated way, and then reveals a number of things to her, and essentially, she has to make decisions and take risks that put everyone she loves at risk. And it's great world building. The plot, the characters are all great. It also has a satisfying conclusion to boot. So I definitely recommend it. I was just, going to read a little bit and then skip and read a little bit more. I just read through the entire thing. So I recommend A Conspiracy of Stars. I left out a lot, but I can't tell you everything because you got to read it. And our last sci-fi, which is, I cannot wait to read this book, but I didn't have time. It's called Satellite. I read the beginning, but I didn't get very far because I didn't have time. So Satellite is by by Nick Lake, and it's narrated by Leo, who, along with his friends, the twins Libra and Orion, were born and grew up on a space station revolving around the Earth. And they're now 16, and the doctors have determined they're now strong enough to travel home, which is an interesting word because they've never been there. So each of them is looking forward to different experiences on Earth. Libra can't wait to garden. I think, I don't remember if it was, I think Orion just wants to feel the wind on his cheek. And Leo can't wait to throw a ball and see the parabola that gravity has on the ball. And he's excited about gravity. He's a mathematician, so he's really excited about gravity itself. But none of them can really be prepared for the realities on Earth. Things are very complex down there, and there are mysterious realities that they start getting involved in, and that threaten them in a number of ways. I also want to say about the writing. The only time there's a capital letter used is if it's a name, and Leo uses something akin to what I guess is like text language. Not all the abbreviations people use in texts, but instead of writing U out, Y-O-U, it's just U. The sort of abbreviations you would think would be in text, and the entire thing is written like that, which is a little bit of an adjustment for me because I'm an oldie, but I imagine that you guys wouldn't even have to. But however it's written in terms of what it looks like, it's really beautifully written. And one thing that's kind of amazing is that it captures Leo's wonder at coming to Earth and his wonder at all the things on Earth, which I think is it's kind of brilliant. I mean, it's a bit akin to what, humans living on Earth can sometimes feel when they look up at space and at the stars. This sense of awe and wonder at how massive it is and how small we are and how little we know. I mean, it's literally awesome. And his experience of Earth is full of that kind of wonder in a beautiful way. Excuse me. Also, though the characters of Libra and Orion are sort of immediately attractive, and more attention-getting, Leo's big heart sort of comes through the book. He's not as exciting a personality, but nonetheless, the reader falls for him too. And sort of later in the book, these mysteries, specifically having to do with what's now a privately run NASA-type corporation, start emerging, and they start finding things out, and it gets very dangerous for them, and the pace just sort of takes off. But I think the characters are brilliantly developed, and the writing is wonderful. I can't wait to read it. Also, I just want to mention, because I love this, is that Leo is totally comfortable being gay, and it has no specific role in how he becomes one of the heroes of the book. It's just like, yeah, he's gay. And I'm of the opinion that that kind of representation is needed. Though I know that a lot of folks who are gay go through I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word that's 4 letters long and ends in 2 L's, but I think many people who are experiencing that don't necessarily want to only be able to read about, other gay folks going through the same thing. It might be fabulous to read about a gay character being a hero and has nothing to do with their sexuality. They're just a person and they happen to be gay. And I mean, that's how I think life should be. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. So that's our last book, and I'm sorry I wasn't as passionate about it because I haven't read it, but I'm going to read it, and then I'll probably be really passionate about it. But I tried to get at some of what is recognized about its beauty. So first 2 people first 2 teens to comment get to choose. And this was my last intro to the summer reading books. I hope you're all having fun reading, getting curbside books, and take care of yourselves. Be safe. And I can't wait to see you when I can finally see you. And if you want to boogie down, celebrate the anniversary of Stonewall, register, tell your friends. I am going to dance like no one's watching, even if you are watching, and feel free to laugh. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.